What's going on, everybody? It's your boy AJ, and we are back for another OVR brought to you by Nerd Talk. I'm here with my co-host, Mind of a Nerd, aka Tyler. It is my birthday, so that means it's my month to choose the OVR that we're doing, the original versus remake that we're doing for the month. And I chose Sleeping Beauty because I love one of these movies. The other movie, not so much. Spoiler alert. But you got anything you want to say before we start?
No, I'm ready to get into it.
All right,
Let's
let's
do it.
get it going. All right, Sleeping Beauty. Let's get this up. Sleeping Beauty was released in 1959, directed by Les Clark, Eric Larson, Clyde Geronimi, Wolfgang Reitherman, and these were basically like directors slash animators of some of these classic Disney movies. Like a lot of these are, they're kind of interchangeable with their like, you know, people that animate and direct, such as like Lady and the Tramp, Peter Pan, Sword in the Stone, Jungle Book, and more. So this movie basically follows it is a movie about a malevolent fairy, and she puts a curse on a young princess, Aurora, which can be broken by true love's kiss. And it is the job of Prince Philip to stop Maleficent and bring Aurora back to life with the help of three good fairies. So I actually saw the remake to this before I watched the actual movie. I watched the movie for the first time in 2022, 2 years ago, and I would say there are things that I admire about this film that I'm not like saying this is a horrible film, but I will say it leaves a lot to be desired for me personally. So I'll start with the good for me. I really, really, really love the animation. And I think that's kind of a universal thing that everybody knows that this animation, it looks like a painting. It looks so beautiful. And especially the scene where Aurora's out in the forest, and she's, singing and she's with all the animals, and it's just kind of like majestic and, like that. And, that animation is beautiful. It looks like a painting, and we don't get movies like this anymore, like that
Nope,
look like this.
nope.
But the other positive thing I have to say about it is that I love the theme song, Once Upon a Dream. That is a fantastic song. It's timeless. I love listening to it. And that about does it for me with the pros. I know it's a short list of two. But when I get into the cons, the bad for me, um, I will say this movie is very boring to me. There is a lot of meandering, I feel like, up until the end of the movie. There's like a lot of characters, with some dialogue here and there. Some of it is funny, especially like through within the three good fairies. Like they have some good banter or whatever. They're kind of funny, but like it doesn't move the plot. Like a lot of this stuff does not move the plot. There is even a scene with the king and he's talking to somebody and it drags for a long time. And I'm like, this movie's only like an hour and 10 minutes. How am I bored? Why? How is this? You know,
Hmm.
this runtime not working for it. Um. So that's one of the things. I feel like the characters are kind of one note, even if they're like, have some comedic tones to their character and has some charisma. They're one note. They're like not really, you know, showing any other versatility in their character or characteristics. So that's another thing that I wish it had. And Maleficent. Look, I think Maleficent is a fantastic villain. I think she's a great villain. But in this movie in particular, really the only thing she has going for her, in my eyes, are the the aesthetic of her, like her design, the look, the horns. Like you see that and you're terrified. And there's a scene later in the movie that is actually terrifying. But when you actually think about her character and characteristic, like she doesn't really have a motive for what she's doing. She's just evil for evil's sake. And I guess that is the same way with some of these other classic villains, Disney villains, but I just wish there was more there. And I think it definitely has to do with me seeing the remake before watching this movie. I didn't grow up with this movie. Like I said, I only seen it 2 years ago. So I'm judging it as an adult. And I know this movie means a lot to a lot of people. But, for me, it just wasn't it. It just wasn't it. Tyler, how you feel about this movie?
So I saw the original Sleeping Beauty when I was very young. I have vivid memories of watching this movie. I don't remember how I felt about it. I just remember watching it, and I remember getting the DVD that came out when they re-released it for it was some anniversary that yeah, I think it was like the first time it was on Blu-ray, but I had done the DVD just cuz um and that was like my memory of it. And the only like real memories of this that stuck in my head was pretty much everything with Maleficent. Everything else was kind of just like I remember that being in there.
It's a reason
And
for that.
yeah, and so I went back and watched this in 2021 when I was doing my ranking of all the Disney animated movies. And I was like, it's okay. It like I said in the OVR we did for 101 Dalmatians, it a lot of the older Disney movies, if they weren't really really good, they were just fine. And this kind of goes into the category of it's just fine, but I don't hate this movie. There's quite a bit I like about this movie. um like AJ said, the animation in this movie is just absolutely gorgeous. I could put the TV on mute and still be mesmerized by what I'm looking at.
For sure.
um some of the characters I find whimsical and enjoyable to watch. I love the three fairies. They give this movie life. They're so entertaining to watch. Their sequence where they're like changing the color of the dress, it's stupid and it really adds nothing to the plot, but it's funny to me. Like I love that sequence. Um I like the not the king, but like his best friend. He's like a bumbling idiot, and he's hilarious to me. Um and Maleficent. Maleficent is god tier Disney villain, in my opinion. Like, yes, she has no motive, but I kind of like that. She's evil just because she's evil. She's exactly like Cruella Deville. Cruella Deville, why does she want to kill puppies? Because she wants to kill puppies. And as evil as that is, that's her motive. She wants to kill puppies. Um, I love that. And also to me, I think the movie kind of flies by. It is very short, and by a certain point, I had paused it to go use the restroom, and I was like, oh wow, I only have like 30 minutes left. That was we got there kind of quick. And when it comes to the part where she has to prick her finger on the wheel, I was like, wow, the movie kind of gets there rather quickly. Um, but now we go into negatives and the the thing that really kind of irritates me about this movie is like most of everything like that's supporting is pretty decent. Yeah, I didn't mention Philip. I like Philip. He's okay. It's mostly because of the ending, but yeah, I was like he's okay, sure. I don't understand how everything surrounding the main character is better than the main character. This is bottom five Disney princesses easily. I don't understand. I said this in my letterbox review. I don't understand how this woman is a Disney princess when all she did was roam around the woods, sing a song, and then come back and die, and
That
then get
song
woken
that
up.
that song was fire though.
Then she woke up, and then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did she do to
I get you.
warrant the title Disney princess, bro?
I, I get you. I get your point.
Like, I
I
don't
get your
get
point.
that. This woman is so. If it wasn't for the live action remake, I swear to you, I could not tell you this woman's name to save my life. I swear to you, I
Do
wouldn't.
they even like say it like blatantly in the movie?
I
I feel
think
like,
so. But
mhm.
I remember watching Maleficent, and they call her Aurora. I was like, is that always her name?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Um, but I do enjoy this movie for what it is. It's very fine. Would I willingly watch it? Like, is this the Disney? No, I'm probably never gonna say, yeah, I want to watch Sleeping Beauty unless I want to go to sleep. Um, it's fine though. I don't have really strong feelings against it. Of like the old Disney movies that are like kind of mid, this is actually one of the better ones to be honest because I think like Bambi and Cinderella are like way worse than this, in my opinion. But it's okay. I don't mind it.
Okay. All right. So yes, that is Sleeping Beauty 1959. Now we are moving on to Maleficent. I will start this by saying I feel like I'm a little biased with this movie and like it means quite a bit to me for some reason. I saw that Tyler changed his score today for this movie, and we'll get into that more. But I do believe, just a forewarning, that our pros and cons list for this movie is going to be different. So,
Yes,
getting into Maleficent 2014, and this is the 10-year anniversary for this movie,
it is.
actually, which is kind of crazy. I remember that when this movie was coming out, it didn't feel like 10 years ago,
Yeah,
um yeah, so this is directed by Robert Stromberg, and this is not really a director that directs a lot of things. This is the only movie that he's ever directed.
I noticed that,
Before
which was
that,
interesting.
before this movie and after this movie, I think
Yes.
he's done like little things here and there, shorts, directed little shorts and stuff like that, but nothing significant. But he is a visual effects designer, so he worked on things like Shutter Island, Hunger Games, Life of Pi, Game of Thrones, amongst other things. So he is involved, behind the scenes and stuff like that. But this is the only movie he's directed. So Maleficent it tells a similar story as Sleeping Beauty, but it is told through the eyes of the villain Maleficent. And there are definitely tweaks to the story and changes that were made to the story, and we'll definitely dive into that when we get to similarities and differences. um but when I first watched this movie, um I'll start with when I saw the trailer. I saw this trailer. I always knew who Maleficent was, but like I didn't really have any connection. I never seen Sleepy Beauty, obviously, so I didn't really have any connection with this villain. I always thought she looked cool, menacing, scary, whatever. But then they were like, "Oh, they're doing a live action remake of Sleeping Beauty with Maleficent as the title, and it's gonna be through her point of view." I'm like, I, I guess that could be interesting, but I'm not into it. I'm not interested at all. Like, I'm not gonna watch this. And I kind of like was an advocate for not watching it for a while, and then I was at my grandma's house and I was just flipping through the channels, and I didn't even know that this was the movie that was on this channel, but I flipped it and I saw like this baby like falling off a cliff, or like about to fall off a cliff, and I'm like, yo, what is this? And I saw Maleficent show up. I was like, oh, this is Maleficent. Let me just keep watching a little bit and see if I like it. Something happened to where I couldn't finish the movie. I was thinking about that all night. I was like, that was good. So I woke up the next day and turned it on and I finished it. And I was like, yo, I really, really like this movie. So I went back and watched it all the way through. And I was like, this is really cool. This is good. Even though I haven't seen Sleeping Beauty, this is good. So when I get so getting to the good things that I think about this movie, I think the story is very compelling, and I think the way that it's told through the time period it's told is compelling. They give Maleficent a backstory. We have like this love interest here, Stefan, and we get a reason why she's the way that she is. I would say acting is pretty good, minus some child acting here and there is just a little spotty for me, but overall it's some good acting here. The visual effects and CGI I personally love. I wouldn't say flawless, but I would say they are really good. And I think that has a lot to do with the director being a visual effects designer. Um, I think the pacing is good in this movie. I don't have an issue with the pacing here. Like, they're basically set up what's happening. We see this relationship between Aurora and Maleficent, and then we kind of get into the climax of the film. For me, I feel like the pacing is good. The story actually builds to something. I feel like, without comparing so much to the other film, this movie does build. It builds relationships here, so we establish you know the characterizations, the character arcs. There is an arc that happens with a lot of these characters, whether they have a downward spiral or a upward spiral. But I think this movie really, it has a story that develops throughout the film. Um, Now, I don't really have any negatives. I'm sure Tyler will have some, and I might agree with some of those to a point. But yeah, that's how I feel about this movie. I absolutely love it, and I'm not really sure why, but I do. So, Tyler, what do you think?
So I didn't. I technically did not see this movie in theater. I didn't see it in theaters when it came out, but the summer this movie came out, I actually went on the Disney cruise, and they had a movie theater there where they were showing like all of their movies that had recently come out in the theaters. Like they were showing like Winter Soldier, this movie, the new Planes movie that had come out, and me and my dad went to go watch this. We saw it in 3D. I actually think I watched it twice in the theater on there. Maybe I don't know, but I did see it there, and I was like, yo, this is pretty cool. Like, and funnily enough, I don't think I knew that this was a remake of Sleeping Beauty until like the very end when the ending happens. I was like, oh, this is the different version of Sleeping Beauty. That's cool. Um, and I really liked it, and so I got it. I got the Blu-ray a couple years ago, and we watched it together, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. Um, on this rewatch today, I still think it's pretty good, but I think a lot of the issues kind of stood out for me. I do think this is one of the better Disney remakes, although that bar is not high at all. Um, but I do really like this movie. I think Angelina Jolie is phenomenal in this movie. This might be my favorite thing that she's ever done, to be honest. I know that she's done a lot, but this to me, she just like disappears. I think she's so good in this movie. The set design is phenomenal in this movie. The wardrobes and costumes and all that is just immaculate to me. The score to this movie is fantastic too. Um, the the story I like for the most part. It's just they changed some things that most of them I like, including like the big thing that they changed. I like, but they do smaller little things that I don't love, and it's kind of head scratching to me why they did those things. If they were going to change other things, which we'll talk about.
Mhm.
Um, and then kind of the biggest issue I have with this movie is the visual effects. Some of them look really good, other times they look kind of rough, and there's a point where Aurora is like in a forest and it's just nothing but visual effects, and it's like, all right, my eyes are about to explode. There's so much going on the screen.
It's like the Snow White
um
trailer.
and they do this thing with the fairies where they like fully CGI them at points. I was like, that looks horrendous. And they eventually turned themselves into humans and then they look like normal people. I was like, oh, thank God. I thought I was gonna have to look at that for 2 hours or an hour and a half. But yeah, for the most part, I think it's pretty okay. I do enjoy this movie a good bit, and when I want to watch a Disney live action remake, this is definitely the one I'm going to watch. But there are things that they do in this movie that I'm like, that really didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, my thoughts.
Got you. Got you. All right, so we will be moving on to the similarities, and There's not a lot of similarities. There are some. So, like I said, it kind of tells a similar story here, just through different perspectives. It has essentially all the same characters, even though there are like more emphasis on some of the characters in the remake than in the original. But yeah, like the story, the way that it, is basically not structured, but like, the characters and how they, interact and things like that. It's very similar. Now, do you have any other similarities? I think that's pretty much it. All I have for similarities.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of differences. Differences. First and foremost, this is live action. The Maleficent is live action. Sleeping Beauty is animated, very beautifully. But and also the runtime is different, which is not. I mean, it adds about 30 minutes to the film, which is not horrible.
Beauty and the Beast one is like 2.5 hours for
Yeah,
no
and
reason.
then the original is what, like,
Not 2.5 hours. I
like
think it's like
it's
only 80 minutes.
oh yeah, yeah. So about an hour more. So, yeah. So the runtime and that they're live action, the Maleficent's live action. There are tweaks in the story, like we said. Let's get into that. So basically, they start off where Maleficent is a kid, and she
Hmm.
meets this future king, and he's a kid as well, and they fall in love. He betrays her, and he wants this power in his kingdom. He wants to impress the king of that time, and to become the king basically, and have power. And she feels betrayed, so she basically goes and curses his child, where in the original we don't really get any of that. We don't get her backstory. We don't get, the king. I don't even know if they say the king's name, but the king is like he's like basically a victim in the original.
Hmm.
He's not, he's a victim. His kid has been cursed by this lady that, just wants to run around and curse people for no reason. Uh, so, uh, basically, that's basically what it is. So, you know, that starting off is just totally different. But then we start to see how Maleficent lives in her area that she lives in. It's like forest and tree monsters, but they're nice. They're not like scary monsters unless you provoke them. And the king wants to take all these territories. He wants to take where they live. So, Maleficent is like, nah, we not doing that. You ain't gonna come in here and, take what I have. And, there's kind of like that battle between the Moors and the kingdom. So they established that as well, in the remake. So in Sleeping Beauty, it's basically Aurora gets raised by these fairies, which happens in Maleficent, but they raise her full term until she's supposed to prick her finger on the spinning wheel. Maleficent sees that these three idiot fairies are failing at their job. So she's just like, I don't want to see a kid die, I guess, So, I'm gonna help her out a little bit. But Aurora she kind of grows on her, and she's like, okay, I guess I'll kind of take her in or whatever. I ain't gonna get that close to her, but I'm gonna take her in, whatever. I don't want to see her die, I guess. And then but she really does, because the curse anyway. um so she grows on her so much, and over the years Maleficent basically raises Aurora in the remake, and until she gets her finger pricked on the spinning wheel. And Maleficent has a change of heart, definitely, because she raises Aurora as her own, and she doesn't want to be, this evil thing that people want to see, or people are seeing her as. She doesn't want to be that anymore, but like that curse is still already in effect. Um, Prince Philip comes on the scene in Maleficent. kind of randomly, like sort of like the original, but he comes on the scene, doesn't really do much. I think him and Aurora have a little reaction in the forest, similar to the original, but other than that, it's like he's there, but I guess he is not really. So basically, that's up into the third act of the film on both sides. So in the original, Maleficent, is in her castle or whatever, and Prince Philip comes and saves the day. He stabs Maleficent through the heart. I feel like Maleficent gets beat rather easily in the original. Do you think so?
Well, it was 4 against 1 technically,
Yeah, I don't know. It just was kind of quick,
and it was
but to
basically
me,
magic against magic. So
yeah, I can see that. And also they gotta stick with that runtime. So yeah, Maleficent gets defeated, and hey, True Love's kiss brings Aurora back, and happy day. So that's basically the ending of Sleeping Beauty. Maleficent goes a separate way where you know Aurora is in the kingdom, and Maleficent is basically trying to get her back, and trying to wake her up in some way. She doesn't really know how, but in some way. And this is where I feel like a lot of divisiveness comes from. And I think Tyler was talking about this is the decision that might be divisive, but it works for him. It works for me as well. Is this what you were talking about with the kiss from the mother being
so
being her being
so they
waking
made
her up?
this change, and I don't mind it at all. I think it makes sense for what the movie sets up. My
Hmm.
issue is that, so in the original they make it that she puts the curse on Aurora, and then the blue fairy makes it. So first of all, before all that, in the original, when she puts the curse on her, she says she'll prick her finger on the spinning wheel and then die.
And she
Not
says it like that too, and
yes,
die.
and die. Oh no.
n- not asleep like death. She'll
Yes,
die,
yes,
and that I I'm messed up in the head, but I love that. That's cool. And then in Maleficent, she's just like, oh, she'll fall into a sleep like death.
yeah, forever.
Okay, and mind you, the original was rated G. This one's PG.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I feel like I get where you're coming from with that because, like, why would she, have these stipulations for her to live at all, you know? But also, I like what they do in the remake because she says sleep like death, and Stefan is like, no, you can't do this. You gotta have mercy. And she's like, okay, I got your mercy. I don't believe in love, and I don't believe in true love's kiss. So you can be woken up. She can be woken up by true love's kiss. I don't even believe it.
See, and that's the other thing I don't like. So in the original, the
Mhm.
blue fairy does that. The blue fairy says, "Oh, true love's kiss, the spell should break." Whatever.
Yeah, but how could she even do that? How
I
how does
don't
she
know,
even have the power to do that?
because she's a fairy. The other fairies put gifts on her too. Like the one of the fairies made it that she could sing. I don't know. Um, but the reason I don't love that is
Hmm.
because I think it would have been cooler if the fairies made that rule. If they kept that, and then Maleficent was like, "Oh, you could try, but good luck because I don't believe that." And then you
Hmm.
keep the same
Oh,
ending.
okay.
That
Yeah.
to me works so much better. Of, oh, I don't believe in true love. This is ridiculous. Like those fairies are out of their minds. And then she ends up fulfilling that. That to me is so much cooler than, oh, I put it on there, I fulfilled it. And then the other
Mhm.
thing I don't like about the remake, why is Philip here? Why?
He has no reason to be there, really.
Because he was in the original.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
man literally he serves the purpose for a joke. Of he
yeah.
goes to kiss Aurora and he's like, "Oh, well, I don't know if I should." And then the fairy's like, "Just kiss her already." That's
I think for me, I think that works, even though I completely agree he doesn't really have any business being here. But I think it kind of works because everybody has seen Sleeping Beauty. Well, not everybody, but people have seen Sleeping Beauty. They know how it ends. True Love's kiss wakes her up. It doesn't work here. So it kind of throws people for a loop, like what's about to happen. I kind of like that.
I like it for that aspect, but I feel like if you just take Philip out completely, it to me it works better because if anything, people were gonna be like, "Oh man, there's no Philip in this movie. What's gonna happen?"
Yeah.
Like true love, well, there is
But
no true love.
I think,
Um,
yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
but um, yeah, those were like the two big things that kind of just like I was like, uh, okay. And then the whole thing with the king, like him being
Mhm.
like the villain and all that. I like the idea, but I don't really like the actor they got for him. He's
Wow.
very corny. He's very
Hmm.
corny to me. He's it seems like he's trying very hard to be a Disney villain.
Hmm.
And it's like some of his lines are just like, okay. All right.
Okay.
Also something that this movie does, I don't love it. They do a lot of close-ups in this movie. There's like a lot of
Hmm.
close-ups of and during the action sequences. In particular, I would notice one in the beginning in the forest fight, I guess if you
Hmm.
could call it that. There's like a lot of close-ups on Maleficent, and it looks weird to me. I noticed it. I was like, that looks really weird. I don't know what that's about. But that kind of goes back to some of the VFX just looking weird, you
Hmm.
know. And also, Aurora still has no characterization at all. This woman is hopeless. I'm convinced this woman cannot be saved by anybody's writing.
How did you feel about this? Is one of my personal favorite scenes. How did you feel about the scene where she's confronting her about being the evil in the world?
I like that scene,
Mhm.
but that likeness of the scene comes from me liking Maleficent so much, not so much
Mhm.
her.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the scenes with her that I like, Maleficent is involved in them. There's
Mhm.
not a single part of this movie where it's only her where I'm like, yeah, that works. She's a good character.
Yeah. There's not
None
a lot of
really.
scenes in this movie with just her, I feel like.
But like there's parts like the part where she realizes like Maleficent is evil and all that, and she kind
Mhm.
of runs away. I was like, I feel nothing for you. go go walk and prick your finger so we can get on with this.
Dang.
Like
I'll break
I
your
don't
finger.
know. I didn't really like feel anything for her. Like is it Ellie Fanning,
Elle
right?
Fanning. Yeah, Elle
Um
Fanning.
Elle Fanning is fine in the movie. She does what she has to do, you know, but I don't know. I can't get into this character. She's worse in the second movie, which I don't know how that's possible. But
Yeah, I don't really remember the second movie that much. But yeah. So in this movie, in the remake, we follow Maleficent's point of view, like we said, and we also see a lot more of the Moors, and we see a lot of these creatures and characters, and you know, I find that interesting. I find that interesting, more interesting than what we got in the original, where we see the flip side of that. We see like birds and rabbits and owls and stuff like that, regular, you know wildlife, but we get to see these creatures in this movie. So they kind of like flipped it that way. Um, like I said, Maleficent has a backstory here, and then um, one of the there is a character that is in the original, but he's not focused on like at all. Um, but in the remake, in Maleficent, he is focused on a lot more, and they show the relationship between him and Maleficent, which is Theobald.
yeah.
And in the original, his name is Diablo, I believe. I don't think it's
That's
Diablo.
news to me. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's not really said, but Diablo is the bird, and I had to do some research because I'm like, Diablo is not in the original. And then I looked it up and I was like, he actually is like, and he gets turned to stone, anything and everything like that. And I'm like, I kind of forgot about him in that. But he actually has a presence here. He is basically Maleficent's henchman. He
Hmm.
says that he's her wings. So, like, he can go into places that she can't really go or see, and he reports back to her. And I do like this character a lot in Maleficent. I think she had a little bit of sympathy for this character. I think he got caught in like a net or something, and she let him free, turn him into a human, talk to him a little bit, and he's like, "I'll serve you. I'm gonna be your servant." And she's like, "All right, cool." So they have that kind of relationship there, but also he kind of challenges her a little bit. When things are getting tough, he's like, "You got to do this. Like, you have to, do this or you have to do that." And she kind of like takes heed to it, even though she's kind of stubborn or whatever. But I really like the relationship between her and Diavol and Maleficent. But that's one character that they don't focus on like at all in Sleeping Beauty. Do you have any more differences? We kind of running a little long here.
Maleficent doesn't turn into a dragon at the end.
She
It's
doesn't. Diavol
Diablo.
turns into a dragon at the end, which is it's frustrating, but I kind of get it. I know that's probably one of your negatives, huh?
Not really. It kind of bums me out that he turns into a dragon, because it's like I'm cool with her not turning into a dragon, because when she gets her wings again, that shit is awesome. But I
I
when
mean,
he turns into a dragon, I'm like, oh, they did it because it happens in the original. So you know, we gotta have a dragon so we could put it in the trailer and be like, oh, look, that's when Maleficent turns into a dragon.
nope, we got you.
But
But yeah,
yeah, that's pretty much all the differences I had.
got you. All right, so we are moving on to the definitive version of the film. I think Tyler's is going to be a lot more interesting than mine because you guys already know mine. I'm going to have to go with Maleficent. I absolutely love this movie. It is fantastic to me. And yeah, let's get on to Tyler's thoughts.
My I have the same answer. It is the live action Maleficent. I have these movies at the same score, but I do appreciate the fact that, one, this is not a shot for shot remake. This is
Hmm.
when they actually cared about making these things. Um, and two, I appreciate the depth that we get with this, and essentially having the same story but with more depth. I That pretty much fixes most of the issues I have with the original. So I'm not going to complain about that. But I don't think this movie's perfect, but it is a pretty good movie. And of the two, this is definitely the one I'm going to watch before the original.
Bet, bet. All right, that has been the OVR for Sleeping Beauty. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you. Make sure you follow NerdTalk.Official. We have more OVRs to come, and we got one more for the year, which is The Grinch. So we're going to be talking about the original animated Grinch. We're going to be talking about the Jim Carrey live action Grinch. And then we're going to talk about the Illumination Grinch. So it's going to be three movies that we're going to be talking about. Like last Christmas, we did, Black Christmas in three movies. So stay tuned for that. You got anything else to say before we get out of
Nope,
here? All
nope.
right. We appreciate you guys checking us out. Make sure you like this video, and we'll catch you guys next time.